Well, today is called Not an Outside Day. In addition to this very light skiff of snow, it's 15 Fahrenheit right about now and supposed to get colder as the afternoon drags on. If you start a project in the winter, there are going to be days you can't work. In the meantime, we've been using the previous nice days to get caught up on some things. We're going to take a look at those next. Now, I came of age, went to school in the 90s to early 2000s, so back then I did play a few video games, and I kind of drifted away from it when I got older because it didn't seem like the most profitable use of time. I do remember a franchise called Halo. Some of you may have played it. And yeah, there's one scene everybody remembers where you start out walking into this giant cavernous hall, and your character, who's out in space fighting this alien invasion, has had previous encounters with these things that, by scale, are only about this tall. And they're basically just spore replicants. They're there to infect things. In that scene, a little subtitle pops up that says, "The Flood." And then these little things that are pretty easy to pop off if they attack you one at a time or even 10 at a time, suddenly appear in a quantity of, I don't know, maybe 1.5 million. And yeah, the next 8 minutes of your life are pure adrenaline. This isn't so much pure adrenaline, we haven't found anything quite that bad yet, but it does feel like a death by 1,000 cuts. One of them, which probably isn't critical, but it sure sounds like it, is when we test started the vehicle close to the end of the last episode. You might have noted it was going squeak, 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 squeak. And we're a little concerned that might actually be the remanufactured power steering pump that's in there, but maybe it's the idler pulley underneath. And that's a cheap and easy one to try and swap. So we're going to do that along with a number of other little things that just need to get done as part of having this thing at least drivable. Only way through is to just get going on them. Okay, first order of business. This here is kind of mashed up on us and it makes it in the way. Not sure how much we can actually straighten this today, but we'll try to get it a little bit better. Okay, here's a way you can get yourself in trouble on this without even realizing it. These two bolts here that hold the exhaust hanger as well as part of that heat shield in place actually go up into a weld nut strip that's just inside the frame rail up there. When I take one of these bolts out, I'm going to want to temporarily put it back up into one of these other empty holes so that that thing doesn't move around in there, or else I'm going to have to chase it, and that's going to be really unpleasant. Probably need an extension to try and turn that, and we might have to put in a decent amount of PB Blaster or something like that as well, but we'll find out. That should do it. That's a 19 that we should be able to turn that with, but let's find out for sure here. Nope, that's definitely not a 19. And it wasn't a 17, so I'm betting it's going to need an 18 or an English. And 18 it is. Turn, it might not. Oh, there we go. How about this one over here? Oh, that's going to be a real pickle to get at. Let's go ahead and lower that exhaust. Let's just put a jack stand under here in case it wants to drop. Now, cut the zip tie. Good call. That was a big zip tie. Okay, it's not happy, but it is turning. Okay, here's what it's gonna fight. I'm gonna spray some penetrant up in there. Actually, this is riveted in right here. I'd forgotten about that. Start with the breaker. There it is. For what it's worth, these are the same bolts you have to deal with if you install a trailer hitch, which we might at some point. Yep, same deal. Well, that was plenty rotted up against the heat shield, but nothing terrible. These exhaust clamps are usually rusted on pretty tight, so next step is just to cut it off. Easier than trying to deal with the bolt. All things considered, pretty clean up there. Yeah, there's the other rivet. Okay, so there was some protection keeping that thing from wandering around. This will probably be the last job for the evening. I just want to put some rust reformer paint so that that rust doesn't go deeper into the steel there. Because if that really starts rotting out, then pressing that rusty metal up against the frame rail is going to rot out the frame rail. So that may be the end of this project for tonight. The temperature is starting to drop, and so it's going to take a while for this to really cure up. And then I've still got to do the inside of it if I want a coating there as well, which why not? But yeah, we're moving in the right direction. Okay, let's just briefly look at a couple more products that need to go on that vehicle out there. These are liftgate bump stops. The number on here is 12012.24, but I'm not sure what that means. I just looked for XJ Liftgate bump stops on Amazon, I think it was. These go over little bolts on the corners of the liftgate. Well, that one there is missing entirely. And note that when you pull these off, if you need to adjust them, you do it with a Torx bit there. They're often forgotten because what happens is they gradually break up over time and then just drop away, get lost. You don't even realize they're not there anymore. On this side, they're still on. They act as a soft stop when the liftgate closes, and if they're gone or really broken down and mushroomed, as happens, pretty crystallized, kind of mushrooming, then the liftgate can close a little hard, and that's bad for the weather seal, it's bad for the latch. A little WD-40 can help you slide on a little better. So put a clean one on there too. Feels right. The other thing we need to deal with here is this exhaust. This is from Walker Exhaust Accessories, number 36377. This is the isolation mount that goes on the back of the exhaust pipe behind the right rear wheel. It has a flex loop on it that allows the exhaust to catch on the ground, which can happen if you're going up a really steep drive or on a trail, and lets it bounce a little bit, while at the same time still allowing it to be an isolated component so it doesn't transmit excess vibrations into the chassis. So this one here, we can partly pre-assemble on the bench. Looking outside, we confirmed it is mounted this way, this side facing out towards the wheel, and correspondingly this side back. This side's going to go in there just the way it's looped like that, which means that side goes on here first, like that, because that side's slightly longer and this side's slightly shorter, so I think this side goes on the inside like this. And this works fine, I'm sure, if you got big gorilla hands. I don't. Let's go ahead and get this plate on there and there. And then these two just go on in there, like that. Looks like a 14 will do it. And you'll need to decide for yourself how tight you actually want these, because, again, you're just tightening against rubber there, so you don't want to vibrate off, but at the same time, you don't want to compress this into nothing. That there's not quite as tight as I'd like. Should be doing the trick. The last thing you're going to need in order to make this work is either a 2.5, 2 7/8, 3/4, 2 7/8 exhaust clamp, depending how it all works out there. When you buy these off the shelf, of course, though, one thing you do want to make sure to check for is all the pieces, because they just ship in these loose boxes. They don't bag these bolts or anything frequently, has been my experience, and so that's what you end up with. There are also a couple different types of clamps. I prefer the ones that have this double-sided throat like this, because then when you tighten them up, I feel like they're a little more secure, but this is going to rust in place, and just like the one that's out there, it's probably going to have to come off with a cutting wheel when you change it again.
Well, something's here. Made in China to the USA.
Okay, now one more thing which I do consider vitally necessary, even though the vehicle runs without it, is the missing fan shroud. These things do tend to break if they've been removed a couple times. People often are just like, don't need it. This is steel. That's a 190 horsepower engine. That's going to chop your hands up. That doesn't care if it's a small animal or your hand, it will parade it. This here is the Chinese plastic version made of polypropylene in this case, I believe. The Mopar one is still available for about 50 bucks. It's made of ABS plastic and it breaks just as easily. So for now I'm going to use this even though it's kind of warped. Once you get down in front of the fan clutch, it's not so bad, but it can be a bit of a bear. Something I've done on a couple of these in the past is just nip that out a bit so it goes down more easily. That'll be a good starting spot there. And straight across right there. Pretty hackish, but it works. So that right there is what we're looking to take out. Well, that was a bit like whittling a walking stick, and there are better ways to do it, but it got the job done. Now let's see if that fits a little bit better down around the fan clutch. Oh yeah. And the fan clears it. I think we're good. For now. Another item I found that's not essential, but it's nice to have, are the glove box stops. They're supposed to be installed right there and right there. It's just been kind of hooking right there like that. It's not supposed to do that. There's little rubber bumpers that look like this. Found them with a kit of hardware on eBay. This is definitely not the most pressing need this vehicle has, but since I got them, make it easier to live with while I'm working on it. Kind of just goes up in there like that a ways, and then pushes in place. Once it does, it stops it from dropping open. These two little nibs on the back then catch those little plastic pieces back there. So this one over here is going to be the exact same story. Just got to work it back up in there. So if you ever need to get behind the glove box, you're just supposed to pop these two out, and that'll do it. Otherwise, glove box done. Got a fair bit of wind right now from a warm front moving through, so I'm not sure if we'll get much usable audio out by the vehicle. But it stayed warm all evening with that front, and so I was actually able to run a few more rounds of paint on this. Went ahead and put a layer of zinc bearing paint on the, here it's called cold galvanizing here in the US. It might have different names elsewhere. In between a couple other layers of paint. So hopefully if rust starts to break through on it again, it'll hit that layer and that'll provide some additional protection so that this doesn't rot through, and then create the basis for the steel to start rotting up into the frame rail. Hasn't done it in almost 24 years, so we're probably in good shape in this climate, but why not? It's easy. All right, first off, gotta work this in up here. Goop this up good. Want that to slide up in there nice and clean, not gall the threads any further. Okay. Now this one, there we go. Not sure how I feel about that. It's actually up against the leaf spring where it's not supposed to be. So I'm not sure what to make of that. Do I drill the holes out so it goes over a little farther? Except this time we should have a little more wiggle room on it. Especially in back here. I think this is part of what was pushing it too far forward. Well, nowhere near as bad as it was yesterday. But that's going to be going here. And then this guy has to go up against it. Hope it came with the right ones. There we go. Trick with these clamps is to make sure you're getting about the same amount of thread out of the bottom of each bolt as you tighten it. Otherwise this thing on the bottom will be skewed. Okay, actually starting to bend the bottom of this. That's definitely not going anywhere. And we lifted it off the jack stand, so we know it's holding it. Well, I'm flat amazed that that was hanging on with zip ties as well as it did, but it's still up and now it's properly fixed more or less. Could have used a smaller clamp, but that one should hold. Let's go ahead and zip off those extra bolt lengths. Smokin'. Well, there it is. Another job done. Having that fixed I consider critical to driving the vehicle, so that's one more off the list. And properly installed, it just clears the spring like the original one did. So, no issues there. Sometimes, when you flip a switch, nothing happens. Since the map light still worked in our dome light assembly, we hoped the main lamp was simply burned out and picked up a replacement at the local parts store. Unlike a headlight bulb, this isn't a halogen, so the oils from your hands aren't just going to burn through a quartz outer bulb, but even so, it was a small victory, but we'll take it. After that, the front side markers got the same treatment. We had more trepidation here because we knew the front clip had been replaced. So, who knew what might be going on in the wiring? But for the second time, fortune smiled, and we now had most of our lighting system in working order. These side markers are federally mandated for vehicles. I don't know of any state laws, at least not where I live, that actually require them, but it's also a way for people nearby you to see you at night, especially on that side of the vehicle where everything's still blue like it's supposed to be. It's pretty dark over there, so why not? Our last maintenance task of the day was to check the coolant condition and level. We had a hunch it was slightly low, and indeed it was. This would bear watching. But like most Jeep XJ owners, we simply refilled it and envisioned the can-do spirit of Lee Iacocca. To close out the day, now that the vehicle was reasonably drivable, we went for that overdue engine bay car wash. Well, how about that? All that work and we never got to the idler pulley. But now that the engine bay is washed and the schizophrenic weather is back to 60s again, we'll try and get under there, get a couple more tasks accomplished. We've got some other things we want to do at the same time. And on one disturbing note, that car wash revealed something else we hoped we wouldn't find. That was a leak above the top of the windshield. It's coming in against the headliner. Hopefully it's just cracked polyurethane, but could be rust. We're going to hope for the best, but see what we actually find when we get under there. So stick around, there's a lot more to do. We're going to be doing paint work on this at some point, and we've also got a whole lot of interior cleanup coming up too. More episodes, more fun, don't miss them.
Has anyone seen my phone?